Tá fáilte of gachéin an seo. Inniu déanaimid Comóra arís Theobald Wolfe Tone. Bhí sé cheann de na hairnig ba cháúla riamh, agus go dtí an lá tá inniu ann feimid inspiráid ón a héal agus ón a chuid luchanna. Agus muid tagail le chéile an seo inniu I mada I bhúdán, ba chórdúing chuimhnamh spirid na néarnach aontaithe. Sa tréimhse dúlánach seo, is féidir linn ceachtainna a álam ón tíorgrá a bhíocha, an íbert a rinne siad agus an credamh láidir a bhíocha, I gcumas bhaintear na tíre seo suchaí ráthúil agus síocháanta a thógáil dóibh féin, agus don glún a bhí le teacht. Theobald Wolfe Tone is one of Ireland's most inspiring patriots, and today we acknowledge his massive contribution to the establishment of democracy and freedom in Ireland. Wolfe Tone made an indelible and positive mark on our history. The Society of United Irishmen, of which Tone was the driving force, was the first political organisation on this island to seek national independence on a democratic, republican basis. The declaration and resolutions of the United Irishmen in Belfast, written by Tone and Thomas Russell to celebrate the second anniversary of the fall of the Bastille, resolved to secure the abolition of bigotry in religion and politics, the equal distribution of the rights of man through all sects and denominations of Irishmen, and the prosperity and freedom of Ireland. Tone was a visionary and the first to espouse a new politics that cherished all sections and interests of our people irrespective of class, religion, or racial origin. His often quoted exhortation to substitute the common name of Irishman in place of the denominations of Protestant, Catholic and Dissenter was both profoundly democratic and new thinking in an Ireland that had previously known only aristocratic government. Tone envisaged a new Ireland for all our people that would be fair, that would promote social justice, and that would be unequivocally democratic. And it was for this reason that he relentlessly pursued the cause of Irish national self-determination. He had a firm conviction that freedom was essential so that our economy could be strengthened to provide decent livelihoods for all Ireland's people. In his own words, he said, "A nation governed by herself will pursue her interests more steadily than if she were governed by another whose interests might clash with hers." That statement is relevant today in the context of overcoming the challenges we face to our economic independence from the burden of debt of the public finances. This commemoration provides us with an opportunity to review those challenges which this generation is now being asked to confront. In the past, in every generation, the Irish people have shown an outstanding capacity to act in the interest of the common good. That spirit, which we have drawn on before, is still strong and will see us through these difficult times too. I say that not out of blind optimism or a false recourse to our history. This country is in the midst of a serious financial crisis, but I do not believe for one second that it is insurmountable. Our policies so far have ensured that the deficit will be less than 12% this year. My confidence for the future is rooted in the capacity of our people. I believe that the Irish people have the ability and ingenuity to solve any problems with which we may have to contend. I'm confident in our own capacities. We should not let others talk us down, nor should we do it ourselves. A defeatist attitude won't get us anywhere. Our people need and deserve a strategy for national recovery that recognises our strengths and galvanises the potential for the country to return to a path of growth. I'm very pleased that the main opposition parties have stated that they accept the core target to reduce the deficit to 3% by 2014 that we have agreed with the European Union. That's a good start, but agreeing the targets is not necessarily the same as agreeing to take the actions necessary and required to meet them. It would be substantially helpful to Ireland's position if we were to show the international community that there is a unity of purpose to go from words to actions. If there's one thing we should all be able to agree, it is that this is no time for politics as usual. The public have a right to demand that all of their elected representatives engage in a serious discussion about issues which are fundamental to the future of our country. While we may differ on how to achieve our goals, I know that the opposition leaders will agree with Tone when he said that we're better off conducting our own affairs than be subject to others' control. I hope that this shared conviction will provide a unifying basis for realistic and focused discussion on the best path ahead. We will be providing information to the opposition, and I'll approach further discussions with good faith, and I hope that we will collectively be able to show the public a spirit of responsible cooperation. The government is determined to deliver on its constitutional responsibilities, the most obvious being the duty to prepare and introduce the budget, together with protecting our international standing. We've no wish to stifle debate on differences of approach. Still less do we wish to diminish the role of democratic opposition on the importance of ensuring that the executive is held to account. But a search for a measure of agreement across the political system could significantly enlarge the prospects for early recovery with direct benefits for very many of our people. That's why I intend to meet with the other party leaders to confirm that we share the objective of putting the public finances back on a sustainable footing by 2014 and exploring what areas of agreement exist to achieve it. That, I believe, would send a strong signal to our European Union colleagues and the international markets that the main political parties here are at one in their determination to achieve that objective, and to do so in line with the commitments that this government have made in the context of our membership of the euro. Recent data indicates that the economy has stopped declining following the big contraction in the economy in 2009. This flattening out in economic activity and the government's decisive budgetary actions over the past 2 years have stabilised the budget deficit, albeit at a very high level. The budgetary challenges in meeting the commitment to reduce the deficit to 3% of GDP by 2014 are immense, but there is no way around it. Fiscal sustainability is a foundation stone of economic growth and new job creation. Countries across Europe, indeed the world, are intensifying efforts to reduce their budget deficits and restore order to their public finances, and Ireland is no different. Indeed, the stakes are high for this country, since concerns about fiscal sustainability have resulted in a deterioration of sentiment towards Ireland in the financial markets in recent months, and correspondingly increased borrowing costs for the state. We must get those borrowing costs down. To do so, significant levels of additional budgetary correction above those announced in Budget 2010 will be required over the coming period to 2014. The main reason for this additional requirement is that growth in our economy is not expected to be as robust as previously forecast, and that means that tax revenues in future years will not be as buoyant as previously anticipated. Interest payments on the increase in the national debt arising from the bank rescue will put pressure on the deficit. It is important to note that the cost of the bank rescue amounts for less than 10% of our annual borrowing requirement, and as stated by the Governor of the Central Bank, this figure is still manageable. The argument that the banks are the source of all our problems is simply wrong. The bulk of our budgetary problems reflect the large gap between revenues coming into state coffers and state spending on public services, and quite simply, we have to address this on a continuing and credible basis. I've said before, optimism and potential are words we need to hear more of. It is our duty as politicians, legislators, civic leaders, and as ordinary citizens to square up to what we can and must be done. A realistic appraisal of the facts and the best advice available about the projections for the future point very clearly to the fact that recovery, jobs, economic growth, and a confident future for our children are all within our grasp. We know that restoring stability to the public finances and fixing our banks is, not the full story of Ireland's path to recovery. On the contrary, our future is based on developing to the full our potential for sustainable economic growth. Through investing in our infrastructure, strengthening our research and development capacity, and developing a new policy framework to create the best conditions to establish and grow businesses, we can face the future with confidence. And let's be clear, we have solid reasons to be optimistic about our economic future too. The Central Bank, in its latest quarterly report, says that after a severe and protracted contraction last year and the year before, activity in the economy will stabilise this year, and our strong export performance will continue to sustain growth into 2011 and beyond. On his recent visit, President Clinton said he believed that the abilities and talent that made Ireland the fastest growing country in Europe would also help our economy to recover. and it is clear that Ireland still retains the major strengths that allowed us to expand our economy and living standards to such a great degree in recent years before this crisis began. There have been dramatic improvements in infrastructure, making Ireland a better place to do business. There are 480,000 more people at work in this country today than was the case in 1997. We have a highly skilled, well-educated young workforce, and we still have many of the most successful international companies in the world operating here. It's important to point out that we have 80 times the level of US investment that Greece has presently, and 23 times the level of US investment here that there is in Portugal. In fact, it's not an exaggeration to say that our success in foreign direct investment is the envy of our international competitors. And we have dynamic and growing indigenous companies and a skills and research base which can produce world-beating performances by Irish entrepreneurs. The challenge today is to build on those strengths and maximise the benefits to Ireland of a global economic recovery. And to do that, we are restructuring our economy. Our future economic and social development depends on our success in forging a new competitive, entrepreneurial and export-oriented economy. And despite the exceptionally challenging environment of the last 2 years, our exports have held up very well. The latest trade statistics show significant growth, with exports rising by 7.5% in the second quarter of this year. And that is encouraging. It means that the improvements in our competitiveness are bearing fruit. Our strong trade performance is also contributing to a significant improvement in the balance of payments, ensuring that we will once again be earning our keep in the world, which is a real economic strength that can give confidence to lenders and investors alike. The message is going out loud and clear that we are determined to work, grow and export our way out of our present difficulties. And by highlighting the importance of innovation, by creating better access to venture capital, by recognising the opportunities to create whole new industries as technologies converge, and by linking our universities and research institutions with the business community in new and dynamic ways, we are creating the conditions for growth. Growth which will not only help us to manage our public finances, but to generate the jobs which must be at the heart of our economic and social agenda. The government is agreed and united in its resolve to prepare a plan for Ireland's recovery over the next 4 years, which takes account of our present circumstances, and to drive its implementation throughout our term of office. And that is what would be expected of us. In the past, Sean Lemass and T.K. Whittaker were the architects of a great progressive transformation in our economic fortunes. I believe that Lemass would have contemplated the current crisis which we face as one primarily of solidarity and national purpose. He would have been very clear about the risks to effective sovereignty of anyone contemplating failure to address our own problems effectively and decisively. And we can also learn from Whittaker's advice that in difficult economic times, he said, it is vital to sustain an atmosphere of enterprise and progress. In such an atmosphere, we shall not allow ourselves to be overawed by future difficulties or to fall into despondency by reason of temporary reverses and setbacks. If enterprise is well to realism, he said, we can advance. So today, as we pay tribute to those whose courage and sacrifice inspired the freedom of this country, let us remember and act upon their example as our political predecessors did. The courage we must summon today is different from that displayed by those who helped to win our freedom, but we need the courage to make the right choices for Ireland and our future. The people of this country have always been Ireland's greatest resource, and our republicanism at its core amounts to a firm belief in the ingenuity and capacity of the Irish people to shape a better future for themselves. In 1790, a Dublin colleague of Wolfe Tone's in a radical political club, which was a precursor to the United Irishmen, wrote of the great potential that would stem from the wise, the gallant and the uncorrupted patriotism of Irishmen. And he exerted his fellow Irishmen and women of 220 years ago not to, as he said, listen to the idle and wicked babble of those who tell us that the spirit of the nation is incapable of active and disinterested exertion for the common good. In more modern times, another great Dublin Republican, Sean Lemass, who led our people into a new era of national progress, spoke of his belief that, and I quote, "There is nothing on earth that the people of this country cannot do better or as well as any other people." And in these difficult economic times, we must enthusiastically espouse that spirit of republicanism, which believes in ourselves and backs the capacity of the Irish people to succeed. I am certain that we can and we will find a way forward to restore prosperity and secure this nation's economic independence. And I know that working together, we can find that way forward, and that when we do, we will live up to the hopes and desires of those who fought so hard to give us the chance to chart our own path to progress as a country. Thank you very much.